Ba-da. Hey, Crystal. Hey, Larissa. Holy Larissa, a few weeks. CD'd it like it was 2 weeks expired. 2 weeks and 6 days. Ben says the day is expires. Couple days, Jared, yeah. How about a week? I just ate yogurt that was a week old. I feel like yogurt is a little bit worse than other ones because it's full of bacteria already. If I run to the washroom, it's my own fault. You can judge me. There's no mold on it, Ben. They just put that date there. It's all conspiracy, man. Just so they can't sue you if it does go bad. They don't know. Kathleen says a million years. Yeah, also the world is flat, Owen. Man, you've never been more right, sir. Some kid's having problems with his business test. 1 sec, I gotta set that up. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Morning. Ben's lost his sanity. Yeah, lots of people and students in my business class are like overseas right now, so I get all the messages in the morning from them, like with questions about class and things like that. All right, anyways. Let's do attendance. Hello, Kendra. Hello, SJ. Hey, Sam. Hey, Sadie. All right, so I saw Jared, saw Sam, saw Teddy, saw Crystal. Pretty sure I saw Yuli up there originally somewhere too. Ooh, guys, I'm regretting eating that yogurt. It said it expired April 8th. It's the 15th. That's a week. Oh, baby. Kathleen, you're here. Is that correct? It is not, Kathleen. It is not correct. I don't see you. Oh, never mind. Yes, I do. Sorry. You have that, like, weird dark logo. I don't really know what it is. It's like an acorn that's blue in the middle of a darker circle. I'm not really sure. Katrin. We go with no. Maddie, yep. SJ was here. Sade's here. Zion, you here, buddy? No Zion just yet. Normally pops in about now, though. Ruth. Yep. Owen. Yeah. And Ben. And Larissa. Ooh, Lucas, though. Hey, Zion. Welcome, buddy. Did I see Lucas's? Yeah, there he is. Erica and Kendra. Pretty sure I saw Erica. I know I saw Kendra. Did Erica say something? Sorry, there's so many messages, even though there's actually not that many. It always messes with me. Erica, I think I either missed you or don't see you. Yeah. Oh, there she is. Awesome. Okay, so just missing Katrin. Cool. Sorry. Yeah, so yesterday we took up our test, and I said I was going to give you a bit of a bump for that, so make sure that you've got that done. I believe everyone was here or messaged me if they weren't here, and I was able to tell them about that. I've inputted your marks into Edsby, but they're the old marks. I haven't done the bump yet because I was giving time. There's a lot of people that weren't done, and I wanted to check all at the same time, so I will do that today. Once I go through all them, so that way I can just all check everyone's thing at once. Yeah, today we're moving on from that, so that'll be good. Where are we in chapter? I feel like it's like chapter 6 now, maybe. Is that right? Let's see. What have I sent y'all? Remember when I was like, we're moving away from lines? Well, this was that unit that I was like, oh, it's like half about lines, and it's not really about lines, but it like kind of is enough that like, and I kind of forgot about it, like I'd forgotten about it last time too. So, anyways, yeah, we are on chapter 6 now. But yeah, anyways, I was just like, ooh, shoot, crap. I told them that we weren't doing lines, and then we are doing lines a little bit, kind of. There'll be things that look like lines, so. Yeah, Ben says that was just straight up a lie. Come on, Benny, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. All right. Let's rock and roll. Do you guys have 6.1? It's called correlation. Do you have 6.1? Tell me if you do not have it in chat. If you could type in chat. Ben says, yup. I think that means he does have it. Who doesn't have? Dang it, Kathleen's doing the same thing. Wait. Say, only reply to that if you don't have 6.1. Kathleen, does that mean you have it or you don't have it? Yeah, Larissa, you do have it. You just have to make sure you're syncing. Yeah. Okay. It's very rarely something that I can actually fix. Sometimes the distribute thing doesn't send it to everyone, but most of the time it's just y'all haven't synced yet. Okay, so we're going to rock and roll through that then. It's in chapter 6, Sadie. Do you have one called chapter 6 yet? Okay, good. Okay, Caitlin's here too, so I'm just fixing that. All right. I know, Owen, that's what I said. It just looks like more lines. Ben says, is the test page always going to be? Yeah, I figured, like, I have it saved, Benny, so you guys can just have that if you want to study off of it or whatever. Yeah, it'll just always be in there. So you can have that. Okay, let's share my screen with y'all so you can see where we're at. Perfect. If you look, basically this whole unit is on kind of like predicting more like real life stuff. So there's a bit more like definitions. There's a bit less crazy math than we have been doing. So I know some of you will like that. It's more about like communicating like real life relationships and how do we graph real life relationships. You know what I mean? Like the relation between X and Y. Remember we talked about relations before. So it'll be all about those sorts of things there. And yeah, not too long of a unit, but we'll rock and roll through that. So there's a few different types of correlation. Today is just about like describing words in order to describe a relation. So we'll cruise through that and then it should be good to go. So there's basically like if you guys think like down to scatter plots, right? These are all scatter plots. We kind of did scatter plots. Remember? Does anyone remember what do we call like? Let's just pretend this is a line here and they're all perfectly straight. Is that there was two words that we used, one for a solid line and one for a dotted line. Do you remember what the one for a dotted line was? What do we call a set of data in a graph that was a dotted line? There's a word for a solid line or a dotted line, two different descriptors. Let's get a drink. Scatter plot for sure. So we're looking at scatter plots and looking to see in terms of words we learned in the last 2 units. Sam says partial variations. Yeah, remember partial and direct variation? Partial variation was when it had a y-intercept greater than 0 or less than 0, like not at 0. And direct variation was when it went right through 0. I guess probably we didn't use them a whole lot. This was back in that task. Remember that chapter 3 task that we did where the lines and the cars and things like that? And you had to describe the car's scenario either using the word continuous or discrete. Continuous was when it got all connected, right? It was like you could have like points in between. Think of like time, right? You could have like, 30 seconds or 40 seconds or 40.5 seconds. But then for discrete, it was more like, okay, number of puppy dogs. You can have 1, 2, 3. You can't have 2.5 puppy dogs. It's got to be 2, right? Or whatever. So scatter plots are basically the idea of you graphing all these different discrete points separately like this. And us predicting a pattern using something like a line or something like that. And that's what we're doing today. We're learning about predicting patterns. So what are some words that we can use? Because it says describe the following. So what are some words that we can use? If you go up here, these are going to be like our lists of words. And so you're going to first describe the type, then describe, sorry, one sec. Owen says, Oopie can have half poof anything if you... Oh, you can have half of anything if you try hard enough. True. It just gets a little messy, right? Type of correlation. So there's 3 types. Technically, one of them is just none. But basically, a correlation could be something that is linear. And correlation means like you're looking for a pattern. Correlation, let's just actually write that somewhere. That word correlation means pattern in the data. Maybe we should have typed that. Pattern in the data. And so there's a few different types of correlation or patterns in data. There is linear, which you guys hate that I write that word, but it would mean basically like you'd think a straight line. Non-linear, which actually like you'd be like, oh, it's anything except for a line, but it's pronounced data, not data. Basically, it's anything that there's still a pattern. It could be like a squiggle even, but at least there's like some sort of pattern because there's something where you just straight up have no correlation as well. Let me show you some examples of what I mean by that. Basically, if I scroll down in a second, I'll just leave you guys to copy that. Linear would be straight line. Non-linear would maybe it's like a bump, like a curve like this. Like I notice, oh, like if we're graphing something, it goes up and then it goes down later. But no correlation is basically like, here's an example of no correlation. Data. There you go, Owen. Let's just pretend I graphed in our class right now. What if I did this, right? Oh yeah, if you guys could be... Oh, sorry, Sadie. Wow, no, are you supposed to be writing on my sheet? I look up and I got like scared for a second there because there's someone else that's writing. I'm like, am I haunted in the house right now? Sorry, Sadie. I will... You can have that. I'm not going to cut it. I'll just copy it. Sorry about that. I was checking if you had a sheet. That's my bad. Here we go. And then I'll do it over here. Okay, sorry. Here's something where we could have no correlation, right? Like, let's pretend linear correlation. I assume, here's an example of something that could be linear, okay? If we did age as our independent variable, and then height, right? As you start out, you're 0 years old, your height is pretty small. I wasn't gonna say 0, you do have height. Like you come out a baby, you're like, I don't know, how long are babies? Ooh, that sounds gross, long. How tall, I guess? They don't stand. They're like, a foot and a half, something like that. Maybe that's overestimate. I have no idea. But they're like pretty short, right? And as they get older, right, if I was to graph, like, I just saw a baby, he was 1 and he was this height. And then at, 2, he's this height. And then they get older. And maybe it's not perfect, right? Because you graph a bunch of kids. But for the most part, you'd notice this trend. Oh, and 5 inches is like... Oh yeah, that's probably actually, I have no idea. I don't know. I haven't seen a baby in a long time. Anyways, you would notice that maybe it doesn't make a perfect line, but they tend to go up like this, right? And we would say that's linear. They're going up in a line like that. Here's something, so this is linear. Here's something that has no correlation. Okay, let's see. What if I said, let's graph the month you were born to your height. Let's go from 4 feet, 5 feet. I want everyone in chat right now to type the month they were born and their height. Month they were born and their height. Does anyone less than 4 feet? No. February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. Okay. Ben is June and he is 6. So Ben is June and he is 6. He's up here. Okay. Larissa is March and she's just short of 6, supposedly. January, February, March, so she's up there, 5'11". Kathleen is May, and she is 5. January, February, March, April, May, 5 feet. May 5'5". May 5'5". Somewhere in there. Teddy is September, and he's 5'10". So September, and he's 5'10". Down there, did I miss somebody? Well, I missed a lot of people, but I'm trying to get everyone. Erica was May. I think I got Erica. Shoot, I went out of order because I got Teddy down there. April 5'11". April, you guys are all taller than I thought you were. Lucas is September, and he's 7'1", of course. So there's Lucas way up there. Maddie's August, and she's 5'7". January, July, August, 5'7". Sadie's May, and she's 5'6". January, February, March, April, May, 5'6". It's about in there. Zion's very specific. He's February. I needed a February. Thanks, Zion. There's not very many of you guys born in the start of the year, is there? February, and what did Zion say? 5'6", so somewhere in there. Yeah, I love Ben goes Sam. There's no way you're 5'11". Who did I miss in here? I didn't get Owen. April, and he's 6'1". I might have missed somebody in here. Did I get Katrin at 5'4" in September? There's so many things that jump here. Oh, Ruth was April. And she's giving us, okay, Ruth, that's so great, but now I have to figure out how many inches is 160 centimeters. I used to know, I think I'm 192 centimeters, and that's 6'4". So you're less than that. Wait, what did she say again? Ruth was 160. So wait, 160 centimeters in feet is 5 1/4. Here we go. Oh wait, what month are you? April. March, April, 5 1/4. Nice. Awesome. Okay, sorry. I think I've got most people. Okay, so as you can see here, we've got Lucas up here as our outlier. But for the most part, like, if you were to be like, okay, draw me a line that goes, it's like, no, like this more looks like a diamond, right? Like, I don't even know. There's no pattern. And it like, I didn't have to really do this for you guys to understand that, right? Like, basically, it's not like the earlier in the year, the shorter you are. That's how I would find a pattern, right? I'm looking for something like that. Or it's like, oh, the taller you are, the more likely you are to have a birthday in January. That clearly wasn't true, right? Although it's weird, we just have more people born in the middle of the year. Was there anyone else in December? Am I the only December guy? I'd be up here with Lucas. But for the most part, this has, I'll get rid of my like random lemon there, but no correlation. Right? Because there's no pattern. There's a misshapen lemon. Maddie says it's a rhombus. Basically, like, there's no pattern here because it doesn't make sense, right? If I graph something like with age and then height, it makes a little more sense. Not always true, right? Sometimes you get those like freak show kids that are like, sorry, I shouldn't say freak show, but like those random kids that are like super tall at young ages. Freak show is the wrong word there. I apologize. I grab my sandals, sorry. I mean, I'm not wearing sandals, I'm wearing dress shoes. Strength of the correlation. Okay, so I know something is like really true. Like, if you find a pattern, sometimes it's like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. Or it's like, that's kind of a bit of a stretch, bud. So basically, you could say, yes, it has linear correlation, but maybe if I said it has, let's use the black pen again. A strong correlation, then all of the points are really close to the pattern. This is basically like a perfect pattern. It's like everything lines up almost not really true, but it's really darn close. In real life, all those lines that we make that things line up perfectly, it doesn't really happen, right? It doesn't really nothing's like perfect. There's always some sort of factor in that's pulling it away. Or there's a weak correlation where a lot of the points are further away. They're not really, or there's some that are off the pattern line. So back over, you see this one here? Like my line. Yes, I could see that there's a pattern that as age increases, so does the height. But they're not really, like, there's some that are pretty far away, right? So it's pretty weak. Pretty weak. Okay. So I don't know if you guys have heard of the word correlation before, but there's another way of describing it, and this is more like what you'll see on the news, where they'll talk about, there's a positive correlation between crime and area in the city. I don't know, something like that. So positive. Sorry, what are people talking about? I think I offended somebody at first. Then someone shushed someone. Then someone said, go to sleep. And anyways, I just saw it ended in Where's Waldo, so I was very confused. Positive is kind of like, and this is why you guys are going to be so good at this unit, because you all have a strong background in lines. So it's good that we do this unit after, but positive, right? We think slope, dude. Positive slope means that something is moving up towards the right. So if I talked about, the age of babies and their height, or age of people and their height here, right? I would say that is a positive correlation, because as you get older, your height goes up, right? If I'm talking about the correlation of like people over 60, right? As they get older, their height goes down. So actually, as we see the points go down with old people as their height goes down, that would be more like a negative correlation, because it's going down, because it goes down, right? Moving down towards the right. It's just like slope, Sorry, negative. Okay, so here we go. This is our last definition, and then we're going to describe some of these. This thing, it says points that don't seem to fit in with the rest of the data. So let's go back over to our height example for a second here for our months. If I was to somehow find a line, that mostly went through these things, and you'd be like, okay, it's kind of like everyone's the same height. But then there's these one or two weirdos that are like way off the line. What would you guys think? Maybe this is a bad idea. What would you guys use as a word for those? Maybe you guys have already seen this before, or you've heard this in science or something like that. What's a word for something that just doesn't fit? Piece of data that doesn't fit. This is probably maybe not my best question. This could go badly. We'll see how it goes. Rip our grades. Outliers, Benjamin. Yes, Sam. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, they're outliers, right? Oopsies. Did you guys know that from science, or is that like is that you guys are just really smart? Yeah, nice. Okay, good. Perfect. Awesome. So, we're going to go ahead and, I figured it was science. That's great, guys. Good job. So, hopefully you've talked a little bit about correlation before then. You can quickly describe some of these things. So, if we look at this then, right, I'm going to use a word from each of these. I'm going to use a type of correlation, right? So it's either going to be linear, nonlinear, or no correlation. I'm going to give it a word for strength. If it's strong or weak, I got two options. And I'm going to give it a word for direction, positive, negative, right? And then if there's an outlier, there's not in this first case, but if there was, I would talk about that too. Okay, so if I'm looking at this then, is this, in terms of correlation, is it kind of line up in a line? Yes, so I'm going to say linear. So my first type, I'm going to say linear. Then in terms of my my strength, right? If I look here, most of these guys line up like completely, right? They basically line up completely. So I would say this is very strong. And now that is a bit of, it's a bit weird to say strong and weak. And you're going to get a sense in a minute about how I feel towards that. Like basically I would say these ones pretty well all line up, so they're strong, right? It makes sense this is a line. This one as well, it makes sense it's a line, it's pretty strong. They're not like super tight, but they're all pretty well along a line if I was to draw it. Whereas this one, you'd still say it's maybe linear, right? It's linear. There's still correlation. Things are going up, right? As this axis goes up, this goes up, so it's going up towards the right. But not very strong, right? If I drew a line, they'd be a lot of them off the line. Whereas if I drew a line here with my ruler, right, most of them would fall on the line. Same thing here, right? Most of them would fall on the line. But then here, that'd be pretty weak, right? There's like so many places I could put my ruler there. So that one's pretty weak. So I know that one's a bit of like a, I don't know what the actual answer is there. But anyways, up to the right, this one would be a positive slope. And there's no outliers. This one, right, it is linear. It is a strong correlation. It's negative. And there, again, is no outliers. This one gets a little bit more interesting now because this is where we talked about weak, right? For these other ones here, if I wanted to, I could draw, right, some sort of line as best as I can through it, and that's how I know it's linear. Same thing here, right? I could take my line and do a decent job drawing through it. But then here, again, like I said, it does look linear to me, but my best case scenario is a little bit like that, right? So yes, it's linear, but it's pretty weak. These ones are pretty clearly not linear, right? Like this one here, there's no way I can get a ruler to go and follow this. Even this one here, right? It looks like it's kind of like curving around like that. It doesn't follow a specific kind of linear pattern throughout. So this here, this one is linear. This here, it would be weak. Yeah, that's true, Benny. I could probably use a protractor or something like that for sure. And then in terms of whether it's positive or negative, you would just say positive. because it goes up. And then our final one is there's not really like one specific point that is further out than other ones, right? There's just a weak correlation. So we don't need to say much about outliers because most of the points are, you know, reasonably far, but none of them are like there's an outlier right there, right? You're like, okay, that guy, he stands out. That's like in the middle of nowhere. Okay. Sorry, I'll leave that up there for a sec. Okay, so our next one here is, if I can hopefully move on, is definitely, if I look to do that with a ruler, you'd be silly, right? So it has to be like something where you would either use a protractor like Ben said or like hand draw it. And you just try and make a smooth curve as best as possible. So what are some words then? Spam the chat. What are some words that we would say about this one right here? Definitely non-linear. Owen says it's boring. Okay, so non-linear. Okay, so basically, if we look here, this is where it gets a little bit awkward, right? About whether it's strong or weak. You guys could probably argue this. And honestly, it's kind of, in my opinion, it's kind of like a flawed kind of line. And it's really just your way of describing it. Here, these ones are quite strong, right? Whereas this one's pretty weak. I would give this a score of weak, just based on the fact that there's like not a lot of them that like line up perfectly on my line. But if you guys argued this was strong, and let's just see, Sam said strong. He was actually the only one that said something about them being strong or weak. Oh no, Ben spammed weak. Ben spammed weak. So we had one weak, one strong. Honestly, it really doesn't matter. As long as it's like, if you said this one was weak, I'd be like, dude. But in terms of this one here, you could really go either way. It doesn't really matter. It kind of is, I can't think of the word, ambiguous maybe, if that's too big a word. But kind of like there's some discretion there, right? Use your own discretion a little bit. So you could write weak for this one or strong, and you could probably argue with me either way. In terms of positive or negative, because it's not a line, I'm just going to write a little note over here. Because it's non-linear, you do not use positive or negative. And there is no outliers. Okay, so again, this next one here looks to me like, if I was to connect it, it'd be non-linear. Sorry, I don't need to use a dash, but whatever. Speaking of dashes, there was my girlfriend works like at the baby ward, right after moms give birth, she works in like the part where you like take care of them for a little bit. There's like 3 days after you give birth that you kind of like hang out, and so she's like always there when they like name their baby, right? And she said like 2 or 3 days ago there was this kid and they wrote their name. She's like, it's Ladasha, that's the name, and the spelling for Ladasha was L-A, and that was like the legitimate spelling was La dash yeah, I thought that was pretty nuts. Non-linear, And then in terms of weak or strong, I actually think this one is like pretty strong, because most of the points go through it, right? I think I probably could have drawn this one a little bit better, but I think I could have drawn a line where a lot more of those points, like I missed these two, right? I think I could have done a better job. And then normally, like if this was like an actual graph, you could describe the outlier. Like I'd look at this point here, right? This is the outlier. That's the outlier there. But normally I could say like, okay, like if these were people in the class, like let's think back to me and Lucas, right? Like if this was somehow like height and age or something like that, I don't know. We would say, okay, the person, you know, with a height of 5 feet that was born in May was the outlier. It's just like an odd case. It's an outlier case, right? So it's not really the norm. So the number of outliers typically matters as well. So I'll just say one outlier for now. There's only one that really sticks out. Sometimes there's a couple more that are kind of just like totally off track, but there's that one outlier there. And you could describe it in more detail. And then this last one here, this one, all you have to say, right? You don't have to say either it's like linear or nonlinear, because there's no way, right? There's no like curve. It would be like the craziest curve of all time, and that's not how you do it. You basically have to like slow freehand. There has to be some sort of trend. Here there's no trend, right? Here there is no correlation. Kathleen, you're the outlier. No. Okay. So no correlation, right? Because there's no straight line that goes through all them. There's no curve, like there's nothing. At least these ones you can find a pattern, right? This is like people when they age, they go up, 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 up when they get old, and then they hit 60 years old, and then their height goes down, 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 and then they go, I don't know how it works. Back to zero height, I'm not sure. Okay, so let's rock and roll. I just got a couple more things. How are we doing for time? 8:40. Yeah, I only really need to do this, and it's just a couple quick definitions. So let's rock and roll. This you guys already kind of know. You know interpolation, you know extrapolation, so stuff should be pretty easy. So here, there's two things, and we're going to spend more time on them over the next couple days, so don't feel so bad. So, you know, up here, when I drew a line through here, right, to kind of graph and predict the data, well, if I just have a bunch of dots, it's really hard to predict data, like extrapolation that we learned last week, right? Probably 2 weeks ago, but anyways, extrapolation, it's really hard to predict. And so what you do is you draw a line between them, and it helps you predict things. Because if you just have dots on a scatter plot, it's really hard to predict. So what we do is we make and this is probably a word you guys learned in science, the line of best fit. So that line of best fit goes through the data as best as you can. Normally, and again, it says it's made by a ruler clear as best. Well, ours is clear in the OneNote. So if you were to draw this, typically you try and get a clear ruler. And that's because, like, if I was to go up here and draw this line, I want to make sure that I can get in between the points. So I want to be able to see the points above and below the ruler line. You know what I mean? To try and get it as best as we can there. So that's our line of best fit. And then there should be approximately, do your best to get the same number of points above and below the line. That's how you'll know it's a line of best fit, right? If all of the points are above the line, like I know it doesn't have to be perfect. Like we said, not every point is going through the line. But if you have the same amount of points above and below, approximately, sometimes there is an odd number, right? So it can't be. But if you try your best then that'll be a pretty good indicator that you've done it. And then obviously the line of best fit does not have to go through the origin, right? If we look here, this one does, but this one in negative correlation didn't. So I just say doesn't have to go through the origin. And then for our nonlinear relations, how do we do this? So tomorrow we're going to learn about line of best fits and how to draw those specifically and how to get the equation and predict things. And then nonlinear is going to be a curve of best fit. And again, that'll be 2 days from now. What day is it today? Is it Wednesday today? I believe it's Wednesday. So that'd be on Friday. And we have class on Friday. Yeah, we just don't have period 4, I believe, on Friday this week. So a curve of best fit is made by drawing, basically you draw a smooth curve, and we did that above. Like this, right? We did this. And so why would we want to do these things? Well, basically we would want to do either of these because you'd either want to extrapolate, or interpolation. Either one. And we learned about those. Remember, basically, if I was to draw a line of best fit here, let's just see. You guys can practice this right now. So let's draw a line of best fit. You want to make sure that you've got as many points above the line as below the line. I'm going to take red here. And I'm going to see if I can get as many points above and below the line. So that, I wish that went right through those, but let's see if I can move it. So it does. Yeah, there we go. So I see that I have 1, 2, 3, 4 above it and 1, 2, 3, 4 below it. So this would be a pretty good line of best fit. I think it does a good job of predicting, right, those the patterns there. It kind of goes up to the right. It's positive, linear. It's pretty weak though, right? And there's no specific outliers here. But basically interpolation, right, would be making a prediction somewhere in between. So if somebody wanted to know, like right here, right, if this was time down here, they want to know, based on this data, I want to predict something that's in here, that's inside my data sets, and then I would look across, and that would help me to predict, right? It's not perfect, but it helps me to predict. So it's basically within, so inside our points. If you guys were to try your best doing a freehand curve of best fit here, doesn't have to be perfect. Basically, it should be smooth. What you don't want is, it's not like one of those connect the dot things where you go like, okay, I'm just gonna like draw, like you want to try to make, and this one's pretty perfect, so it kind of defeats my point here, but you'd want to make it as smooth as possible. Now mine still sucked there, but you don't want to, like, if you go slow and you make sure it goes through all the points, it's not really predicting. It's going to look like this bumpy curve. You want it to be a smooth curve. Yeah, like here. Like I don't want it to look like that. You want it to be more smooth. So you want it to basically try your best. You might want to do this a couple times. Something like that, right? Where it goes more smooth through the things. And that helps you predict a little bit better. But anyways, extrapolation is when you predict outside, right? So if I extended this line here, to me it looks like it's doing that, right? And I needed to know something like out here. Well, then that would help me predict it. Cool. So you've just got a bit of homework down there at the bottom, page 326, and you're going to do number 1 to 4. Number 2, 3, and 4, you're able to actually tell me the type of correlation. So go up here and use these words. I know the textbook doesn't say to do that, but just make sure you do that anyways. Okay, you do have some time now. I want to give you guys more time to be doing stuff in class so you don't have to do anything outside of class. So that is it for me. If you guys have questions, hit me up in Teams. I'm going to be available on Teams. I just actually saw that I have had a message in Teams for quite a while, so I'm sorry if that was you. It's not. It's all my business people. Anyways, yeah. Have a great day, guys. Let me know if you have any questions in chat and hit me up. Actually, in Teams. See you guys later.